Hi folks, welcome to the VMware webinar, where we are going to discuss how you can move your Horizon-based virtual desktops to the cloud using VMware Cloud on AWS. My name is Shikha Mittal, and I'm the Director of Product Management at VMware, and my team works on delivering cloud services for Horizon. I'm delighted to have with me once again, Brian Madden. He needs no introduction. He's the industry guru for all things related to desktop virtualization. Hi, Brian.
Hi, thank you for that non-introduction intro. I'm here in Palo Alto where it's really, really raining hard outside. Yes. So if you hear that on the roof, that's that sound. But yeah, what better to talk about, I think with reInvent happening this week.
Exactly.
Everyone, AWS is on people's minds.
Yeah.
I think what VMware is doing in the EUC space around Horizon on AWS is very interesting, and I'm really psyched to be talking about it today.
Yeah, exactly. So since AWS with the reInvent show going on is supremely hot, if you're using Horizon virtual desktops and are wondering how you can leverage AWS, this is the webinar for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to discuss today.
Let's dig in.
All right. So what exactly is VMware Cloud on AWS, right? So you've heard of the VMware SDDC stack. So what we've done now is VMware is essentially offering the VMware SDDC stack, which includes vSphere, vSAN, NSX, along with vCenter management on top of bare metal AWS. So essentially, you can get all the benefits that you've always enjoyed of VMware on premises. Now you can have that on AWS. So let's actually look at a slide which explains this.
And this is something that, to be clear, this is not an EUC or Horizon thing. This is broadly speaking, VMware as a company allows people to run vSphere. I mean, traditionally vSphere was on-prem software.
Yes.
And now, so this is actually for customers who have big investments in AWS, they can literally run vSphere and vCloud and all those other things that are in the other buildings here on campus. They can run that on AWS. So it's like real vSphere on AWS.
Yes, this is real vSphere. And like you said, this is nothing to do with end user computing just yet, right? This is if you want vSphere, vSAN, vCenter, because you've been running your workloads on premises and you want to now take advantage of cloud, who doesn't want to do that? You can do this very seamlessly and have a transition into VMware Cloud and AWS. That's what is the official name for it. And it's great because it is a strategic partnership between VMware and AWS. These teams have actually come together to offer this very easy ramp into the cloud. So you get best of both worlds. And you can, and the other good thing is you're not just limited to the VMware stack running on AWS. In fact, you can also leverage native AWS benefits as well. So you really have best of both worlds.
And AWS now has over 100 different services or 100 different products that they have. And I felt like historically AWS has kind of been focused towards developers. I mean, we as IT pros will use, EC2 and VMs and S3 storage and stuff, but most of these things, when I see AWS has a new offering, I have to Google what it actually is because I'm an IT person, not a developer. And so to me, that was a real value of VMware Cloud on AWS is, I think the VMware stack has been geared towards IT pros.
Yes.
So it's how we virtualize our Horizon servers and our file servers and our, all that kind of stuff. So to me, that combination is sort of taking the enterprise focus that VMware has and then leveraging the infrastructure focus that AWS has.
Exactly.
And then as you said, if you want to extend your enterprise kind of here and there with some AWS services, they're all in the same building, so to speak. With VMware Cloud on AWS.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is that enterprise focus along with the footprint that AWS has. They are doing what they know best as far as the cloud infrastructure goes, and we are providing that SDDC stack. So if you marry the two, you essentially have that easy ramp. If you didn't have this, then you would essentially be writing, I don't know how many scripts to make sure that what you have running on premises on vSphere runs on AWS. So we have taken that pain away from you, and we've done this in a strategic partnership. You saw Pat Gelsinger on stage at AWS reInvent as well. So you know that we are working together behind the scenes very strategically. And what this means is any kind of workload that has been using vSphere running on premises can now run on VMware Cloud on AWS with absolutely no change. And that's what we're going to talk about today with Horizon 7 workloads.
It's interesting because, you talk about that where AWS has its own VMs. That's the Amazon format, and it's the Amazon way of doing everything. And so I think historically, people who wanted to leverage on-prem and cloud, like you said, you got these scripts to sort of migrate back and forth. And so the idea that I've got those native capabilities, now I really am just extending my on-prem environment into AWS, and now we can do it with Horizon too. I like it.
All right. So now that VMware Cloud and AWS exists, that means that we can run Horizon 7 as well. And this is the same Horizon 7 that you know and love, and tens of thousands of customers have been using that on premises. It's that same Horizon 7 that is running on VMware Cloud on AWS.
And I think that's the thing about VMware Cloud on AWS. It's a mouthful. We call it internally VMC.
Yeah.
So if you hear VMC, that's VMware Cloud on AWS. But if I'm an admin and I open up vCenter and I'm looking at all my hosts, I'm seeing all my machines and my workloads and everything, I've got a bunch of physical machines, and then there's a bunch of VMs on there, and I can sort of see where they are and where the storage is and the networking and all this kind of stuff. And if I extend my on-prem environment into AWS, it's the same vCenter, right? It's the same view into my environment where I just see that here's all my hosts, and some can be local and some can be remote. And so if I'm using Horizon to deliver virtual desktops or virtual applications, I can see all my Horizon hosts and how they're running and how they're performing. And this is the same thing. So I can have Horizon, and I can put some on AWS, I can have some on-prem, and it rolls up in the same environment. And it's the same Horizon I would run myself, because it's the same vSphere I'd run myself. It's just running on AWS.
Exactly. So just like you would install that on premises, you now are using VMware Cloud and AWS, and you're exactly right. The fact that it's the same vCenter allows you to actually have some pods running on premises and some pods running in AWS, which is a whole new level of flexibility that you have now, because it offers hybridity. Which we talk about very lightly, but it can be quite challenging to provide. But here we are, just because the underlying platform is exactly the same, you can actually have both running on-prem and in the cloud, and there you have it. You are suddenly hybrid. We have a slide for this, right?
While you're doing that, there's a question about migration to AWS, vCenter, or just vMotion. Yes, because it's real vSphere, right? Running on AWS, it's real vCenter. And speaking not just on the Horizon standpoint, I mean, just broadly speaking, you can vMotion, you can move environments out, you can stretch your fabric across. It's like a real node in your own vCenter environment.
Yeah, so the SDDC offering on AWS is exactly the same. So you get all those benefits. The Horizon itself that is running on premises and also running in AWS is actually using Cloud Pod architecture. So with Cloud Pod architecture, you can be running a desktop on premises if you chose, and then you could run that in the cloud if you chose. So that just Cloud Pod architecture sees VMware Cloud and AWS as just another pod.
And we have pods because this Cloud Pod architecture, it's a silly marketing term that talks about, all the contained elements that run Horizon are sort of in this pod, we call it, and it's got the various, backend support components and your VMs and all that. So in a typical large Horizon environment, traditionally, you might have 2 or 3 different locations, and you've got pods at each location, and they kind of roll up into one vCenter. This is just like putting another pod. It just happens to be in an AWS cloud instead of one of your own buildings.
Yes, exactly. So in this diagram here, you can see that Horizon 7 is actually sort of traversing both your on-premises, which is your left-hand side blue box, and then on the right-hand side, you see the orange box, which is the same pod running in AWS, but it's the same Horizon 7. You're still using vCenter, vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. It's just a different location.
Now, when it comes to desktops, the use cases might be a little bit different, because you might not necessarily have you don't really have the same needs to live migrate a desktop from on-prem to the cloud. For servers, that's important. And in fact, one of the early use cases I learned about the VMC on AWS is some customers were using it for doing hardware migrations and hardware upgrades in their office. So they're like, oh, we have vSphere here. Let's just rent the VMC from AWS for the weekend, shift live everything to AWS, do our upgrades, and then we'll just live migrate it back down. But then the anecdote is they do that, push up on AWS, and they're like, why do we have to move this back down again? It's running there. It's good. Yeah. But that's, if these are business critical kind of servers in the back end, I can understand that. From a Horizon standpoint, users sleep at some point. So a lot of times what ends up happening, we'll get into this with Horizon desktops, we end up building sort of desktops dynamically as users log in. So you don't necessarily need to fuss with migrating. It's just like you can integrate them in some environment. And if you want to redirect users to log on to AWS, it's transparent from their standpoint. It's just that when they connected Monday, same front end, same clients and everything, is just now it's on AWS and they don't even know it on the back end.
In fact, the end user should not even know or care about where the desktop is being served from. It could be on premises, it could be from the cloud. And you're right. I mean, based on surveys that we have done with our customers, the vast majority of them are not moving to the cloud completely and just cut the cord altogether. The vast majority are in the hybrid use case, right? They have a good number of use cases for which the desktops need to stay on premises. And then they are also embracing the cloud for all the flexibility that the cloud provides, the agility, the fact that it's always up to date. These are things which are really resonating with our audiences. And so for those benefits, there is this mix, and that I think is going to stay for a while. And so being able to have this flexibility, so that, if you just point the desktop either on premises or in the cloud using cloud pod architecture, which, by the way, the other benefit is it's already things that customers are familiar with. So if you're an existing Horizon 7 customer, the interface is the same, the cloud pod architecture is the same. So there's a lot of that which also helps. So you're not learning something brand new, and you get that advantage. It's
the same Horizon, same the admin standpoint is the same. And we talk a lot about people want to say, oh, cloud versus on-prem.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I get asked that question probably once a week. And the answer is, who cares? I mean, it doesn't, the idea from an IT standpoint, we want to be able to deliver, the Windows desktops from a data center, Windows applications from a data center. I really don't care whether it's on-prem or cloud. And I mean that in a good way. We want to make it, the user experience is the same, the admin interface is the same, the agents are the same, the client, the front-end URLs, the gateways that are balancing, that's all the same. So we can move the workloads wherever they need to go. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not versus, right? I think that's what you're saying. It's not on-premises versus the cloud. You want to take advantage of the cloud for what it offers, then you have a solution for that. And if you want to stay on premises, that's fine too. In fact, we have a slide which talks about the different offerings that we have from end user computing. And no matter in which bucket you are, whether you want to manage all the layers yourself, or if you want to have some portions offloaded to vendors like VMware or the public IaaS, or vendors like AWS, for example, then we have an offering for you too on that. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah, this slide is I like because there's so many options for Horizon now. And so I feel like it's good.
It's good.
But then it's like, oh, wait, so this one is here and this one's there, and I manage this, or IBM manages, or I bring my own, or it can be kind of complex.
It's true. There are lots of offerings to choose from. But I think fundamentally, I think the way you need to look at it is that there is a desktop virtualization solution. And you have to decide which infrastructure capacity that you want to use and what kind of management you want to have. So if you look at this chart that we have on the slide here, there are different layers, and we're going to look at what different layers you will manage. Now, a good many of you have good reasons to manage every layer, meaning the infrastructure layer from the hardware on to the SDDC stack, the Horizon infrastructure, and of course the desktops and apps. And if that's the case, then staying on premises is the right choice. By no means is that a negative. In fact, we embrace that. We have a robust roadmap for that as well. And so that is your leftmost column. Right?
I want to point out that, so on this chart, on the slide, it's those green rectangles are the ones that the customer is managing.
Exactly.
So on the leftmost for on-prem, that means you're managing the hardware, you're managing the SDDC stack, which is like vSphere and vCloud and everything. You're managing Horizon, and then you're also managing, your Windows VMs in Horizon. So how those are being patched and updated and application updates. So that's traditional on-prem.
That's your traditional on-premise.
But your RAID controller goes down.
Yeah.
And your dinner's interrupted. You're going to fix that.
Yes, with that responsibility comes great power. Is that what it says? But yes, that's exactly what it means. And if that's the model that works for you, then no problem. That's what you have. But in the cloud world, there are a lot other options that you can consider. And so the second column, which is what we're discussing today, is where you have Horizon desktops and apps on VMware Cloud and AWS, where two layers are essentially outsourced to VMware and AWS as well. And between us, we take care of that for you. So that means you then are only focused on the desktop virtualization software and the desktops and apps that you wish to provide to your end users, whether that's email, whether it's, Adobe or Skype or what have you, right? But the infrastructure, the servers, the compute, and also the SDDC, vSphere, vCenter, is taken care by AWS and VMware respectively, and you manage the rest.
And the way that I look at this is, if you look at the slide, these examples on the right, like the IBM Cloud or the BYO public cloud, to me, this is a lot of what's like traditional DaaS.
Yeah.
I said, I want desktop as a service, whether it's VDI or RDSH based. I just want to pay for it per month. I don't care where it runs.
Exactly.
I don't care what infrastructure it's on. I want 10,000 users of 2 vCPUs and 4 gigs of RAM each with 50 IOPS each or whatever. Just do whatever you have to do, make it work. I'll manage, I'll patch Windows, I'll patch the applications, as you say.
Yeah.
And that's cool because it's all outsourced, all managed by someone else, and there you go. But the problem is there wasn't a lot of flexibility between those two. Like if you look at the stacks on the right versus the stacks on the left, the fully on-prem means, again, I'm being paged if a hard drive fails.
Yes.
The full managed is like, oh, but this user wants, a GPU, or this user wants 6 gigs of RAM instead of 4 or whatever. And now it's like, let me call the DaaS provider. It's a new contract. So to me, this is what VMware Cloud and AWS, it's that sweet spot. And again, this applies in general, not just to Horizon, but certainly to Horizon as well, where it's like, hey, I want someone else to manage the hardware.
Yes.
I want someone else to manage. Just give me vSphere. It's vSphere as a service, essentially, right? Just give me vSphere, but I want to build my own VMs. What VM options do I have? Whatever I want.
Yes.
I want to make my VMs my way. I want to set up NSX my way. I just want to build the environment my way.
Yeah.
But I don't want to deal with failed hard drives and like vSphere patching and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And that's that sweet spot right here that VMC is.
Correct. And that's the second column. And you're right. The last two columns are what we are referring to as desktop as a service. And unless you have requirements for very custom configurations, you could leverage those options as well. And we have two options there. One is on a managed cloud, meaning either you could go to your favorite partner, or we have an offering on IBM, powered by the IBM Cloud as well. And then we have your bring your own public cloud, which is Horizon Cloud on Azure. But in both those cases, you have desktops and apps that you focus on, and everything else is managed between VMware and the IaaS provider.
And by the way, I'll add real quick, and then we'll get to some questions. These 4 stacks, none of them is good, none of them is bad.
Correct.
It's like with your car. Change your own oil, don't change your own oil. Buy it or lease it, rent cars only. It doesn't matter. Like some people like doing more, some people like doing less, some people want to do things more their way. This is just providing more granularity in the options.
That's right. And that's why, the title of the slide is really providing more choice. And I know that at first glance, it seems that there's too much, but really the question that you have to ask yourself is, where do I fit in? How much control do I need? And, do you want to essentially just focus on the desktops and apps, or you want a little bit more control? Once you have those answered, the rest really falls into place. And in fact, in the future, we will be making this a lot more easier with easier licensing, but that is another webinar, not today. We'll discuss that later.
Do not invite me to that webinar.
Why not? I will.
But some questions.
Oh,
so
cool.
do you have to do a separate pod for this, or can I integrate these VMs into my existing pod that I have on-prem?
So it would be a new pod that you're creating on VMware Cloud and AWS, and then the cloud pod architecture would essentially recognize that pod as well. You can use the same images. You can use, in fact, you can use vMotion, I suppose, to be able to move that image across. But you can share assets because, underlying Horizon 7 is exactly the same.
And I don't think it's really recommended that pods stretch across multiple physical locations anyway, right? Isn't that the whole point of a pod?
Yeah.
So I think this makes it, because it's a different location, it's its own Horizon pod. But it's, the users can bounce back and forth the images, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and also just for your own manageability, right? You need to have a pod that is sitting in AWS. You know that it's a cloud pod versus an on-prem pod, and then you can use it depending on what kind of use case you have, whether it is DR or stretching or so on.
Someone asked about GPUs.
Yes.
Is there GPUs in these bare metal instances?
So right now, we don't have GPU support on VMware Cloud and AWS, but that is something that we have on the roadmap, and it is going to come soon. But if you have a use case for it, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have you sort of help us prioritize that. That is coming.
Can I speak on that for a little bit? I'm new to VMware. I mean, like new-ish, right? Since April, so that's, I don't know, 5.
You have only a year to be able to say that. After that is gone.
It for sure is not a year. People. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Let me say that 100% is true. If there's something you want, make a lot of racket via your rep, via Twitter, via your TAM, whatever channels you have, because I can absolutely say that when you look at the product managers at VMware and they have a whiteboard with like 45 billion functions, and I'm like, oh, these are all amazing. They say, okay. We can do 6, this week. What should it be? And I'm like, oh, so features that you want, not just relating to Horizon 7 on VMC on AWS. Generally speaking, if there's things you want, I found VMware to be very open to hearing feedback and going in the directions you want.
So as a product manager, right, I am essentially listening to what is it that the customers want, and if a large number of you want graphics, which we know is the case, we're working on it, but that makes a difference for sure. And the good thing about cloud, by the way, I must say, is that you get a release every week. So that is, as a PM, again, very satisfying, because you're putting in a requirement and you're seeing actually things progress. But the short of it is, yes, we are absolutely listening to you. Please reach out to us if you have any either graphics or any other requirement, and you can be assured that we are looking at it.
And the same is true with Amazon too, because I think that they have, these bare metal instances that the VMC runs on are not in every location yet at Amazon. And as they have to bring those on first before then we can put VMC on top of that.
Yeah.
And they're also open to feedback for, like, if you want it in your region, be loud.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, yesterday, as part of AWS reInvent, I was seeing some of the labs that are going on for VMware Cloud and AWS, and they're running full to the gill. So it's really good to see how people are picking this up, because it has finite advantages. So I think that's really great. All right, so here's a slide which talks about the use cases. Why would this be important? Why would people care about running virtual desktops, Horizon virtual desktops on VMware Cloud and AWS? And I'm sure many of these resonate with you, but for example, data center expansion. If you want to expand your footprint without having to worry about the CapEx that you have to otherwise, put upfront, this is a great example where essentially you're looking at VMware Cloud and AWS, and you can expand at will. It is an hourly consumption-based pricing on the cloud infrastructure, so that's a great benefit.
And you can collapse at will. Because there's a lot of businesses that are very seasonal.
Yeah.
And everyone always talks about, the cloud is so good. You can scale up during the busy season and scale down during the slow season. But that hasn't necessarily applied to like VDI type workloads before, because it's like, well, I got my on-prem VDI, the clouds are these other solutions. So I just kind of like bucket a bunch of contractors in the cloud, but it's like a different environment. And then it doesn't.
Yeah.
This is 2 different things. So now the fact that you can take your on-prem, maybe you've got on-prem Horizon 7 for your sort of regular full-time users, and then seasonally you want to add a server or 2 in AWS, and it's the same environment, it's the same images, it's the same connection gateways, all that kind of stuff, and you can add in another few hundred users or whatever for 3 months, and then stop paying Amazon, and it goes away, and then there you are. So I think that the data center expansion is always been an attractive use of the cloud.
Yeah.
It just was never available from the virtual desktop virtualization before.
Yeah, it's not that your temporary workers are going to have a subpar experience anymore, because it's exactly the same. You have the same Horizon 7, you're using the same images and apps that you would have otherwise used, except it's on infrastructure capacity that you can turn on and off, like you just mentioned. So yeah, the temporary seasonal burst use case is extremely relevant. In fact, most of the customers who are talking to us are talking about 2 things. Amongst all these use cases here, the 2 sort of top runners are seasonal and DR.
Mm-hmm.
And DR has been extremely relevant. It makes a lot of sense, right? Why would you have a full data center that you are, you're running and you hope to never use because you hope to never have a DR scenario. So here's cloud offering you that benefit.
And this is, DR is such a challenge when it comes to desktops.
Yeah.
Because historically, you've got desktops in a building and you're kind of backing them up, and a lot of companies have like, dark sites where all the old desktops go and they just sit there cold for years in case they're ever needed. But then you get into VDI use cases and how do you do DR with that? And I just had a customer meeting literally this morning before this call, and they were saying like, no one's really pushing DR when they're talking about DAS providers. I'm like, yeah, that's because it's really expensive. And this kind of use case is nice because you can have, your whole Horizon environment is built, it's tested, your disk images are up to date. If you're using dynamically created desktops with a combination of, your disk images and like app volumes and user environment manager and all these kinds of things, that's all ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you can just light up the cloud when you need it. And, even if it takes a couple hours, then you can have, potentially thousands of more desktops. It was not possible to do DR with desktops, I think historically, without something like this.
Yeah, and it, like you said, the SDDC stack is ready to go. It's always up to date, so you don't have to at the point of DR worry about, oh my God, is it upgraded? Is it at the right version? That's all taken care of. And in fact, we at the Horizon, with the Horizon service itself, today we have Horizon, which you'll have to take care of the gold image, but we are working on creating all these stops as well, where we would have an image replication service that will take care of your image replication into the DR site. We'll take care of having essentially the ability to have the same kind of desktop. You just have to worry about the user data and make sure that you have that persistent experience. Now, if you're using floating desktops, even that is not a problem because you're essentially having a live desktop.
Yeah, it's being recreated, exactly.
Yeah.
That leads into those other reasons, and there's a few questions too, which we'll get to at the end of the slide. This app locality and data locality, and this is, ever since my days of when I first got involved with Citrix in the 1990s, the mantra is like put the desktop by the data.
Yeah.
That was true in 1998. It's true in 2018. 20 years later, which 20 years later, what? But my gosh, but it's true. And so if, I think that is a very valid use case is, I wrote along with my friend Gabe Knuth, a book about DAS like 4 years ago. And one of the issues was, a lot of people were looking at DAS, but then all their data and other applications are on-prem, and then they put DAS in a provider, and then the user connection goes up to that DAS desktop, but that DAS desktop has to reach back down to the on-prem to get the files and stuff. So if you have embraced AWS within your organization in a big way, and you've got other applications, you're using other services and data and storage and everything in AWS, it makes sense to put the desktops where the data is. And now we're able to do that.
Yes, exactly. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think what you said is spot on. If AWS is your go-to cloud and you've already moved, apps and data there, then it makes perfect sense for the desktop to be there as well. Now, of course, you can have your own direct connect back to on-premises and access your Active Directory or your data. That's absolutely possible as well. But, at some point, physics will show up. Latency is going to be there somewhere. So you have to decide what is the right option for you. And that goes back again to that chart. You have to make a few key decisions based on the offerings that are existing in the market.
And then the final use case is for people who want to just kind of test out or do a deeper proof of concept of Horizon 7.
Yeah.
VMware, we have all these, there's hands-on labs you can play with. There's our test drive program. There's all these little kind of sampling programs you can play with. But if you really want to say, I want to put some real users on Horizon and really try and experience and see how it works and get it all built and running, you can go for 2 weeks, a month, whatever, with Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS and get the real sort of Horizon 7 experience without having to shell out for hardware and all that kind of stuff.
Actually, that's so true. I mean, cloud does provide that speed. And the other use case which we hear about is, for M&A, for example. So you've acquired this, small office or big office, and you want to quickly incorporate and assimilate those new employees. Cloud is definitely easy just because of the time that it takes to otherwise have stood up the entire desktop virtualization. So cloud gives you speed. Now, one thing I often hear is, cloud helps you save money. That's not necessarily the case. And if that is the leading reason why you're adopting the cloud, you might be in for a disappointment. So it's very important to make sure you understand why you're adopting the cloud. It's usually flexibility, agility, and this, the speed with which you can move. And in many cases, this actually translates into cost saving. But if you just look at it on paper from a side-by-side comparison, you might find that, hey, hold on, there's a sticker shock that you might be in for. But you have to look at it from a full holistic management perspective.
Yeah, I that's another topic that I talk about a lot, because comparing apples to apples, the cloud typically adds a lot of features. Like I said, it gives you that flexibility. It gives you, it's like the same thing where people talk about how crazy airline pricing is, and it's like, we're sitting next to each other on the plane, and I spent $199 and you spent $299. It's the same seats. It's like, well, but mine included the right to change my ticket, or mine included, like a weekend stay as a longer return to all these things. It's not really the same, and that's kind of when you look at the cloud. It's not a VM versus a VM. There's a lot more you're getting with that, and that is obviously attractive because all these companies every quarter are just crazy, blowing out the revenue in terms of what they're doing on the cloud.
Yeah.
Speaking of cloud, things change. So there's a question there about licensing. So this is licensed as a subscription on the cloud, and they said why. The question was like, why can't I have perpetual license for VMC, for Horizon 7 on VMC? And I want to say, like, it's the cloud, bro. Like, that's not how it works anymore. That's kind of a jerk answer, but that's kind of true? Is it a little bit?
Well, yes, a little bit it is true. So the perpetual license that we've had for years now, it does exist, and it allows you to run Horizon 7 on premises. But if you want to take advantage of the services that the cloud provides, then you are looking to buy a Horizon subscription. And we'll get to it in a few slides, but the cloud services, there are a whole bunch of them. So the amount of advantage you are going to start getting from the cloud is going to, you'll see the premium that will provide you, the flexibility and the advantages.
You are subscribing to a service.
Yes.
Because traditional software is like, well, I'm saying very traditional. I burn the bits to a CD and I ship it to you, and like you own, I know you don't really own it, but like, I'm out at that point, unless there's support you're buying or whatever. But like, that's a one-time transaction. When we're moving to Horizon 7 on VMC on AWS, it's not just like you're taking these bits and then VMware's out of the picture. Like, there's a lot of services that are being provided by VMware and by AWS that are sort of included into that.
Yeah.
And that's what you're paying for on that sort of monthly basis, as opposed to the initial CapEx upfront cost that then is not a cost on the back end. Yeah,
that's exactly right. The services will start to add a lot more benefits on top of the Horizon 7 that you already know.
It's the same reason why Office 365, you can't buy that, perpetual, right? Like, there's Office the old way, perpetual, or Office 365 as a service. This is like that.
Yeah, so this is definitely a new model. And subscription is the way to go. It gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how many months you can subscribe to. It gives you that flexibility, and you can pair that with the VMware Cloud and AWS subscription. In fact, that's a question I sometimes get asked: is Horizon 7 part of VMware Cloud and AWS? So let's just clarify that VMware Cloud and AWS think of that as the infrastructure layer. So you are essentially buying that from VMware. It is one build from VMware. You don't have to go to AWS for that. You're buying VMware Cloud and AWS from VMware, but you then have to have an add-on, which is the desktop virtualization with the Horizon subscription, that entitles you to not only the Horizon that you will manage, but then also going forward, you'll be having a whole bunch of services that we will provide, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll on.
All right. So. About the DR use case. So let's take a look at that, if I can advance my slide here.
Here, I got it. We're going to this one.
Yes, that's the one.
She has way too many windows open on her laptop. Right here, I'll tell you that.
I do. And virtual desktops is working just fine. Just saying.
I said that at VMware. At VMworld, I mean, I had, this is way off topic, but, so I joined VMware 6 months ago. I mean, I wrote the VDI delusion, right? I'm not beating down the door for loving VDI as like, I think VDI is important. I think it's a important piece of overall, sort of end user computing platform and EUC strategy. I was amazed when I came to VMware how many people are using Horizon, are using VDI.
Yeah.
And and it's 40,000 users here, 50,000, 90,000, 150,000, 20,000. Like it's and I say today, the VDI technology, it's fine. And someone asked me that. I was at this conference called E2E in Greece a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, "Oh man, how's Horizon?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." And they're like, "What? Just fine? Not great?" I'm like, "No, it's fine. It does everything it's supposed to do. Like people are using it. They're running their desktops. They're updating it. There's instant clones. It's people use it. And the fact that VDI is like not a thing that people talk about in these companies. I'll meet a company that have 200,000 users, and they're like, it's 150,000, like PCs and 50,000 VDIs, and they just gloss right over it as they're describing their whole estate. And the fact that VDI is just a thing now that just kind of works. And that's what's allowing us to have these conversations about the placement, because no one's arguing like, is VDI real? Is VDI, like, does the technology work? It works, it's fine, and it's just another way of delivering stuff.
Yeah, it is table stakes, if I can call it that. And we eat our own dog food for sure. And yes, I am guilty of having several apps open and several windows open at all times. I don't see how you could work otherwise, but it's working fine. So that's that's a little plug for.
So look at the slide here. So you pulled up the slide on business continuity and disaster recovery. For how people are using that. I wonder if you can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think, again, it goes back to the fact that it's the same Horizon 7. You're using cloud pod architecture to essentially do the pairing between your primary pod and your failover pod, just like you would do for an on-premises CPA, multi-pod architecture. And so it just so happens that that pod is sitting on AWS, but you can essentially stretch your Horizon 7 deployment between these two different infrastructure layers and have that the DR capability. And going forward, we're actually going to make it even easier by giving you the replication facility. But right now with CPA that you are already familiar with, and also the fact that you can leverage instant clones and you can leverage elastic DRS in the future, this is really going to be extremely useful and extremely cost-effective way of doing DR.
Wait, back up. Instant clones is today available?
Not yet, but if you can move to the next slide here.
So instant clones, this is one of the technologies where I tell people, do you remember when at some point, it was like only 5 years ago, when you could turn off the car engine to your car and the power windows would still work, right? Because before it's like you shut the car off and it's like, dang it, start the car, get the window up. And when it finally happened, you're like, why did it take so long for people to like figure that out? That is the same to me with, and the technology is just it's brilliant and obvious and the way it should be. That's what instant clones is to me. Because remember the old days of, can I say linked clones in this building, or will the ceiling collapse on me? Like linked clones were awful. I didn't work here then, so I can say that. Where the idea, because obviously there's lots of use cases for non-persistent VDI, and there's lots of use cases for persistent VDI, and I don't want to get into that. But for non-persistent, in the old days, you had to build your disk image, and then these linked clones, you had to like run all night long and like make copy after copy after copy after copy. And now with instant clones, it's essentially cloning the VM. I mean, it's like you have you've got a gold master image. It's like you boot a VM that's sort of running, but no one's connected to it. And every user connects, it just blink, like makes a clone, and like you connect, blink, here's a clone, and they're instantaneous. And there's actually this VM fork like API that's been built into vSphere for a long time. And I imagine, I don't know how it went down at VMware. I imagine someone is like reading through the API docs and they're like, well, this is interesting. I wonder if we could use this. And instant clones, phenomenal.
Yes.
Awesome. So now I can build, one disk image and like ping, and I can have as many users spin up as I need. I can have older versions and newer versions. I can roll back very easily, like change my master image, and then the users can reconnect and they get the old one. I don't have to like re-link clone the old ones. So instant clones, awesome. But this is news to me. I didn't know it was coming on.
Yes, it is.
VMC.
It is definitely coming on VMware Cloud and AWS. And you're right. I mean, in the time you took to explain that, you would have got what 50 VMs like ready to go.
It's as fast as they can write the entries into the.
It is like almost per second. It's an in-memory clone, so it is really fast. You get that desktop up and running, and then you pair that with, you layer on the different apps and the profiling, and essentially then you are ready to go with a persistent experience using essentially non-persistent bits. But yes, the big news is that we have instant clones and app volumes coming before the year closes.
Oh wait, like it's November 29th, like next 4 or 5 weeks. Like yes. This is coming This is coming before the year closes, and it's in fact in preview right now. So this is definitely happening. And of course, in addition, you have the full clones, you have RDSH, you have Unified Access Gateway. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. User Environment Manager, and you have your Workspace ONE VIDM support as well. So VIDM is, for the acronyms, that's our identity manager. Yeah, our identity as a service, our identity broker. So that fully works in Horizon 7.
Yes. So what you're getting... on Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS is essentially the same Horizon 7 that you have on premises. Now, yes, there are a few things that you won't find on VMware Cloud and AWS, but those are things that are, I guess, not applicable anymore because we're using bare metal AWS. You're using an SDDC stack, so you don't have a security server.
Please tell me link clones are not supported.
You don't need to use link clones now that you have instant clones. Exactly, right? So there are some differences. So if you did an Excel spreadsheet chart comparison, you'll feel like, okay, I don't have certain, caching technologies or efficiencies from storage because you don't need it anymore. That's taken care by the storage, compute, and networking layer that AWS provides. This is essentially the power of having an IaaS vendor, an expert IaaS vendor who knows what they're doing. They take care of that stuff. Your focus now is higher up the stack, and you're looking at desktop virtualization, you're looking at apps, you're looking at your end users. That's the whole beauty of offering Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS.
What I love about taking a look at this slide, available now, among the things available now is User Environment Manager.
Yes.
Coming by the end of the year, next 4 or 5 weeks, is instant clones and app volumes. When I take User Environment Manager, instant clones, and app volumes, it's a pretty sick solution now. Yeah. VMware calls this JUMP because we love the acronyms here.
We do.
So JUMP stands for just-in-time management platform.
Not bad, you got it. Yes, exactly.
But this is going back to that persistent versus non-persistent. Yeah. The non-persistent dream is there's a lot of components that are required. So when you take instant clones, which is I can make a master image, make a gold image, and then I kind of fork those instantly for users. I can use app volumes to dynamically attach applications into that environment. I can use User Environment Manager to set my user profile policy, the user data, the settings across the applications. And User Environment Manager, it's like I'll call it profile virtualization for old school folks. It's that sort of stuff, but the 2018 version of it.
Yes.
And so it's cool. And so that takes all the user settings out of that sort of base image. You combine those three together, and that's how you can get a fairly usable non-persistent desktop.
Fairly usable?
I'm going to say, not every application can be isolated, and virtualized. However, there's a lot of other things that we do. Like when I talk to customers about persistent versus non-persistent, which again, is 2018. I cannot believe I'm still having this conversation, but it's needed. It's needed. One of the things is some applications just for whatever reason don't work well in containerization or isolation, but that's where we can do things like, okay, put those applications onto their own Horizon server, and maybe we serve those out as seamless published applications.
Yeah.
Because you can do it. I call it double hop. You can do that where I've got my VDI desktop I'm connecting to. There's a bunch of applications natively installed. I'm using things like ThinApp, like AppV, like app volumes, dynamically put the applications in. And there might be some just apps with crazy requirements that just do not play well with others, that I put them on their own Horizon server, and I still have the same icon on my desktop. I click it, it just opens a seamless window back to maybe even an RDSH instance of that app. So you combine the ability to sort of double hop to my problem applications, app volumes, AppV, ThinApp, instant clones for the imaging, and User Environment Manager. It's pretty solid.
Yes.
And again, it's not going to be the use case for everyone. I'm not saying that this means a persistent VDI goes away, but it's a very important use case. And again, if we're trying to make Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS as equal as the on-prem versions, that's what we need. So to me, I'm not even joking. Like, I'm learning this right now along with all of you. Like, I did not know that this is coming. I thought instant clones would be impossible on AWS. So that's amazing.
See, that's why we have vSphere. That's again sort of the beauty of running VMware Cloud on AWS, meaning you get the entire stack from VMware. We have vSphere, vSAN, vCenter. So any benefit that you could have got from vSphere, you get it on AWS, which is exactly why we said it's, sort of best of both worlds. So VM Fork, which is essentially the underlying technology which allows instant clones to happen, is now possible on AWS as well. So yes, we took some time to figure out some of the inner workings and sort of some of the control delineation between customers and VMware, but now we are ready to rock and roll. It's in preview right now and going to be generally available. And there is so much more that we are working on where you'll start to see how, we have sort of the core functionality of Horizon 7 that which is on premises. And now we're going to add on top of it cloud services, which you would never have seen on premises. But so, you have what you already know, and now we're going to start layering on sort of the icing, if you will, which cloud provides.
I think that, using Office as an example is really, that probably is a good model to think about, right? Because like the Office software traditionally, when you go to Office 365, it's like, yes, it's still like the bits of Office running locally on my laptop. They're just updated like once a month now or whatever. And there's all these sort of cloud-enabled services. So like the version of PowerPoint I get with being part of Office 365, even though it's still running on my laptop, it's sort of cloud powered. No, that's not the right word.
Cloudified?
Amplified. It's able to do more because that sort of continuous connection and to the services backend that obviously Microsoft is trying to do to provide more value to that. And that's the same thing that we're trying to do is say, look, if we have this running in the cloud, if we have it running and delivered as a service, what else can we do with that? And that becomes pretty interesting.
Yes. And in fact, speaking of the cloud, what you saw so far, what we've been discussing so far is how you can run Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. But this is still something that you would essentially install, you would manage it because that's a customer managed Horizon 7 offering on VMware Cloud and AWS. But guess what? We are actually taking this one step further. So are you ready for this? And we announced this at VMworld. So if you can advance the slide. And what you'll see here is, we have the Horizon 7, which is sitting on premises, which is your traditional on-prem model. And then we have the Horizon Cloud control plane, which is essentially our cloud-based DaaS service, which we have in the market today. It allows you to have a whole bunch of cloud services, which automate the installation, the upgrade. It's always, latest and greatest software. And then in that, you have things like image management. It's really taking everything that you would otherwise do with desktop virtualization. It makes that into a service. And now on top of that, if you...
I think I can't see if we have the builds showing here. I'm just going to assume that the builds have run and that they're okay. So,
but can you still advance though?
To the next slide. Let's see. No, I can't.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There you go. Whichever magic, Travis on the back end or Krish, whoever did that, keep going.
Yeah. So this blue bar or the blue row that you can see on top of the Horizon Cloud control plane is essentially our Workspace ONE intelligence and insights that we're adding. And again, this is where the power of the cloud really starts to show, because now you can start to, who wouldn't like to see insights into how is the Horizon desktop virtualization being used? Who is logging in? What time are they logging in? Are there apps that have never been used? You're paying a sort of a yearly annual subscription and maybe it's not even being used. Well, that's the kind of insights that you can get and intelligence that you can get. So we are going to be adding that. And now what we have launched is essentially a cloud connector. That cloud connector will allow you to take your traditional on-premises Horizon 7 and connect you to this control plane so you can start to enjoy those cloud services. And what is really interesting and relevant to this discussion is, so remember we said you have Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. Well, now we are essentially giving you many, many cloud services to give you the ability for that to be offered as a service. So we are starting out with an install service, which will allow you to install Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS in an automated manner. It will automatically install the cloud connector for you. And so what otherwise would have been a manual step where you bought VMware Cloud and AWS separately, you bought Horizon subscription, but then you have to install it. Well, guess what? Now you can go into the Horizon Cloud control plane, click a couple of buttons, and then you sit back and Horizon will install automatically in VMware Cloud on AWS. So that's an advantage that we are bringing to the market. And because, as you can see in this picture, the control plane is common across all these different infrastructure types, you can actually now mix and match with our Horizon Cloud offering that you already have on a managed cloud and also in, for example, in Azure. So, one control plane, you can go back and forth, and you have that multi-cloud flexibility, which is a buzzword. Who knew?
Okay, I want to back up.
Yes, lots to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you said there. Let's start with intelligence.
Yes.
First of all, so to me, and this is another thing I talk about a lot, I said VDI, I was like, VDI, it's fine. It works. So where's the value now? What's the differentiator between vendor A, vendor B, vendor C? I'm not talking about the value of VDI versus not VDI. I'm saying okay, if I can host some desktops, I can get access to them. They work on a lot of clients. That's fine. What next? Intelligence is what's next. And intelligence, this is part of the Workspace ONE platform.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this intelligence with the analytics and insights, this is not just a Horizon thing. It's not just a Windows thing. It's Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, identity. It's everything. And to me, a lot of the value that you can get with intelligence, it's the things you said. What applications are crashing? What's vulnerable? What applications are being used? Performance, all that kind of stuff. One of the biggest questions that I've always wondered is okay, with traditional VDI, you do some lab testing, you build your VDI, you kind of say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to have XL, L, medium, and small. Task workers get 1 vCPU and 2 gigs. Executives get 5 CPUs and 50 gigs. Whatever. So we kind of size out these VMs, and then you're always wondering, did we size it right? Is it good? If I give all my users 2 vCPUs and 4 gigs, should it be 3 gigs? Should it be 5 gigs? I don't know. And that to me is a lot of the value that we start to see when you're rolling up into intelligence. We can start to look at how these desktops are performing and understanding not just that it's a Windows thing, but it's Windows running on a virtualization platform, and understand the entire stack from the storage, from the networking, from the application performance. I think that's critical. So to me, if you want to look at where the innovations in VDI are going to be in the next, kind of couple years, this is clutch. And what's important too is everything we're doing with Workspace ONE Intelligence. It applies to VDI environments. It applies to Horizon, but it's not just about that. The same platform is collecting that information, and the analytics, as I said, is also applying to your physical Windows 10 laptops, your Macs, iOS, Android, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. In fact, it's no longer just about VDI anymore. VDI is almost like a piece of a bigger puzzle. You can say VDI has been replaced with DAS. Even so, the desktop virtualization is just a piece. We're looking at an end user experience, and that includes many different aspects. And to that point, yes, the intelligence and the insights, and we are continuously adding more. We've started sort of that journey right now. We can give you insights into what is happening on both the physical and the virtual side, which is great because now don't have to go into 2 different systems to do this. You can in fact even push an update, which is really nice, an OS patch update or an application update, both to your physical and your virtual, which is such a, the way it changes the way you're looking at things, because now you're not like a VDI engineer. You're essentially looking at my end user space, which includes desktops. It includes, your mobile devices. Again, going back to that, the enterprise mobility.
And that's what I always figured is important is that, we want to manage Windows.
Yes.
VDI is not about Windows management. VDI is about Windows delivery. I have laptop version of Windows, desktop version of Windows, virtual version of Windows. The virtual version I could do on-prem, I could do cloud, I can do both. But how you're managing your applications, your user profiles, your security, your patching, that you have to solve for your physical Windows machines as much as you need to solve for your virtual Windows machines. And to me, that's really critical that you're doing that in the same way for both.
Yes.
And that's what kind of is happening with Workspace ONE. So I like, this conversation today is very much focused on Horizon 7, specifically VMC on AWS, but that is just the tiniest piece of the overall workspace environment.
I think that's absolutely right. So we are sort of mixing physical and virtual. We are mixing on-premises and cloud. So there's a lot of things which are coming together. And you'll see here, we are also mixing multiple clouds. So this control plane that you're seeing has got the wealth of different kind of services. Today, we're going to start off with the install service for Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. And in the future, we plan to offer all the services that we already have today with our DaaS offerings, but we're going to provide that for Horizon 7 on VMC as well. So remember that chart that we saw where we had customer managed Horizon software on VMware Cloud and AWS? Slowly, that will also turn into a VMware managed offering. So again, you decide which cloud is your preferred cloud, whether it is VMware Cloud and AWS, whether it is a managed cloud from your partner or a different IaaS vendor. You start there, but then you can seamlessly move back and forth no matter how you do it, because the control plane hides that complexity to move across one or the other, but it is going back to consuming desktops and applications as a service on VMware Cloud and AWS.
I'll tell you what, me 5 years ago, well, never ever would have thought I was working at VMware, but me 5 years ago would not have thought that VMware Horizon would be available on AWS, available on Azure, available on IBM, available on-prem. I mean, really making it the platform and, where the compute lives and how it's managed, do whatever you got to do what works. It's a different VMware now than it was 5 years ago in terms of the openness of working with these various cloud vendors.
I think that's the only way to continue to add value for our customers. We are sticking to what we know best. Our core competency is with the desktop virtualization. We can do things there to make your lives a lot easier. We do it ourselves here as employees of VMware and user computing. We can offer you the same benefits. Do we have to go and build our own cloud? No. We rely and partner with AWS, for example, and you're seeing that happen at reInvent as we speak, where the partnership is stronger than ever. We are offering now Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS that you will manage. In the future, we're going to offer that even as a service. So the future, we should say something about the horizon. The horizon is bright.
Look, we got like 2 minutes left. reInvent's happening this week. We have got to talk about AWS Outpost.
Like, how about that?
In no way are we authorized to speak about this, but I learned about AWS. So people are like, all my friends are like, man, you're working at VMware now. You're in the CTO office.
Yeah.
Like, what's that like? Like, do you know all the secrets? And I'm like, now, like the AWS Outpost, I learned about when Pat Gelsinger sent the company-wide email, same as everyone else.
You should follow me on Twitter, Brian, and stay up to date. Like, seriously. Yes, it happened. AWS Outpost is out there.
But so for those of you who haven't seen it, this is it's something that Amazon announced like 2 days ago. It'll be released next year, so it's not out yet. But it's on-prem, like it's AWS hardware that you bring into your building and is running like the AWS cloud,
yes,
where they manage it, but it's on
in your private data center. So it's AWS cloud brought down into terra firma. So you get cloud on-prem, if there is such a thing, and it is going to become a thing. And the best thing is you can have VMware Cloud on AWS run there as well. So just like how VMware Cloud on AWS is running in the cloud, it can also run on that AWS Outpost, which is running on premises. So the possibilities of this is just endless. Like you could go back and forth on-prem cloud just as seamlessly as ever. And so, this really opens up a whole new bunch of flexibility and hybridity.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where, VMware, we announced at VMworld in the US, it was some kind of like some AWS service, some database service or something like that you could run, on-prem. And this is kind of taking that to the next level where, Pat Gelsinger was on stage along with Andy Jassy, CEO of AWS, to announce this, that is fully supported for VMware Cloud. And so I can just imagine by extension, again, this is like next year type stuff, but the idea of your cloud environment where you get that box, that chart with the rectangles that are green, and say, well, if it's on-prem, I now have to manage my RAID controllers, my hard drives, and my stack and everything. Now I can actually, or next year, I will be able to have Amazon VMware manage all that, even the on-prem stuff.
Yes.
So it's pretty cool. And again, everything we're talking about, VDI, Horizon, is like a tiny little piece of the overall EUC environment, of the overall Workspace ONE platform. And so we spent an hour talking about this, which is fine, but that's not, EUC to us is more than Horizon. It's more than the cloud. It's more than Windows virtualization. But Windows Desktop virtualization is part of that.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I actually learned a lot in this webcast. Like, I'm not even joking about that. Like, I show up and I talk at these things, and I learn from people like Shikha, the product managers. So.
Well, I hope you have learned also about Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. We have a ton of information on our website. So if you just go to vmware.com, you can learn about VMware Cloud and AWS. You can also learn about running Horizon on VMware Cloud and AWS. And of course, stay in touch with all the new announcements that are happening at AWS reInvent, with VMware and AWS coming together to offer you the best of desktop virtualization.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, let's sign off. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, and see you in the cloud.
See you later.